Hello, hello. It's March 21st, 2023, SIG Node weekly meeting. Welcome, everybody. We have relatively short agenda for today, and I didn't want to include bug tracking in like stats because we are in code freeze and test freeze, so not much happening. Itamar, is it your first item?
Yes.
Do we need a?
So I wanted.
Do you want to present something, or you just want to speak?
No, just to speak. So basically, I'm trying to start an effort to move the swap API into beta. I saw that there's a list of requirements for that, and basically I've already made a POC to both introduce the new API and to show that it's already working and there is not much implementation-wise to do there. So I'm going to share some link in the chat here. This is the POC itself. It's also linked in the meeting agenda. I both wanted to ask you guys to have a look and maybe give some feedback and share your thoughts about it. But there are another bunch of questions regarding the other requirements in order to move it into beta that I would like to discuss if it's okay. So one example, if you look at the link that I just sent in the chat, this is the cap that says what are the requirements to move it into beta. And for example, one of them is to support controlling swap consumption at the pod level. Now, my POC actually introduces an API that controls the swap entirely from the container level, not the pod level. And I think this makes sense because it's coherent with the other resource allocations that Kubernetes have. So for example, when defining memory, ephemeral memory, CPU, all of that, it's all at the container level. And so I wanted to also implement swap limitation on the container level only and not the pod level. So my basic question is this list updated? Is it relevant? And what do you think about the container level and the pod level, for example? And also regarding the other items on this list, maybe some of them aren't relevant anymore simply because they are pretty old. Yeah, wanted to hear your thoughts about it.
So I think when we talked about pod level, right, the initial idea was that there will be a knob that controls a percentage for all the pods, rather than having something directly in the pod API level. So, uh, so we start with that and then we evolve and then we figure out whether it makes sense to give that much control to each pod. Maybe it makes sense to give it at the QoS class level, and depending on which class you are in, you get access to some percentage of the swap. So that was the original idea when this was written down. I mean, we haven't talked about this for a while, so I think this is a good time to re-kick those conversations here.
In 127, you plan to execute on Alpha 2 milestone of this cap. So we are in Alpha and we wanted Alpha 2. And biggest question for Alpha 2 was security and reliability. Specifically, if there is a memory-backed secrets located in swaps, and anybody who can take a snapshot of a disk can get the secrets out of swap file. So we wanted to address this question first, and most ideas were around not allowing cgroup on V1, cgroup V1 for memory swap, because cgroup V1 has so little controls over usage of memory swap. So yeah, and there are more items on Alpha 2. I think Alpha 2 is way better outlining what needs to happen. Beta is, as Murnau said, a little bit farther ahead. And the question for beta, specifically for alpha, we wanted to understand how eviction will work and how we can control memory between RAM and swap. And in beta, we wanted, based on this observations and experiments, we wanted to decide whether we want to change API to support percentage-based swap usage, or we want to use per pod or per container definition of swap. So if you're interested to help, I do plan to reintroduce it in 128, and I think we need to execute on alpha 2 first, and then get down to beta targets.
All right, thank you for all that information. I would say that I am very interested into pushing it into beta in 128 if that's possible, but I am willing to dedicate a lot of time for it to happen. So yeah, maybe we can just start by you looking at a POC, and maybe I'll revisit all of these other requirements on the list, and yeah, maybe we can continue from there. Herschel, do you want to add something?
I actually, Sergey already answered that question I had about alpha 2 and beta. So yeah, we're good. I think, Sergey, we can continue to work together via SIG Node channel, I guess, on Kubernetes and
Yeah, there is even separate channel for memory swap specifically. So yeah, let's reconvene, and maybe for 128 we can change the scope for beta. If there will be many contributors, it's okay. We just expected one small contributor for this release, and we didn't get it. So yeah, maybe 128 we can increase scope if there are much interest.
Okay, so if you have the link, please send it to us, that channel, and then we can start kickstart the things there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Let's go to the next item. I'm not sure how to pronounce this name. Let me check. Adil, are you on the call? Yeah, I looked at this item that was posted, and it seems that the item is about SIG CLI, not SIG Node. There may be a mistake, but maybe I'm missing something. So I asked on GitHub, so maybe we can get more context next time. For now, you're up.
All right. So I know we just graduated V2 couple of releases ago, but like in Red Hat, we're trying to move to V2. And as we are moving to like new pieces, what we are seeing is that a lot of the code is dropping support for V1. Like we found patches in kernel that didn't work in some cases for V1. Then system D is not supporting V1 for some edge case scenarios and so on. So like it makes sense to ask the question, like how long do we want to support V1 on the Kubernetes side? And like maybe this is a good time to kick off those conversations. Like when do we deprecate it? Because the distros and everything will be moving to V2 soon, and a lot of work is also happening on the kernel side to close the remaining gaps with V1.
Yeah, we talk about that. I think almost every quarter, every planning, and it's just yeah, this is kind of a predictor, right? So when we're doing this SIG group for V2, the problem is I don't know. I also don't know when the container D and the CRI want to drop the SIG V1 support.
I guess like if we make a plan, right, that okay, we're gonna support it for 3 or 4 releases, then we can announce deprecation and start moving everyone like away from V1 and encouraging them to V2.
My problem.
Well, I have an idea.
So we of course want to drop, right? So then I'll make our maintenance easier. But the one things we need to consider, because like the system validation last week we just talked about, we actually only say okay, kernel version 3.18 and above we support. So in that cases, unless we are tight on that one, so I'm not sure. We can make a plan, maybe like at least the attempt along.
Yeah. I'm not saying like we do it, but at least we start thinking about it. So maybe in 2 years we can, drop it, or 2-3 years we can drop that V1 support.
Okay. Yes. So yeah, let's just have a plan.
Yeah, GK is moving to a V2 as a default, and I think in 126. So we don't expect much troubles with that move because mostly workloads are compatible. And I think if you try to be like numbers are like driven, it may help. So maybe you see GK numbers, and you can look at Red Hat numbers, and then
yeah, definitely. So we are also gonna like push, like we will still have to stick with V1 as a default because I think we are using some creative features in V1. Like we are using a real-time kernel and we are using some features that our customers depend on. And we found some gaps there. Like V2 doesn't have those features in V1. So it'll take us at least one more release to be able to move to V2. But definitely like we can get that data and I mean, collect it together to make an upstream decision. Uh, Sasha, you have some idea. You wanna go for it?
Yeah, I already some time ago mentioned that idea to you, but what we can do for removing this support for version 1 is actually to remove all C group management from the kubelet. So let the runtime to deal with all the like low level things. Like tell the through CRI protocol proper what you ask from runtime, and let the kubelet like clean and simple.
Yeah,
still
that's one way one way to go about it.
It would help half the problem anyway.
we just put this problem to a different head, right?
You still need to answer the question, right? So as the Kubernetes vendor or like the open source community, we still need to some way to answer, right? So as the whole, like the node stack, you have to say, okay, what do you support, what do you don't support, and how to configure. You still need to do some work. So it's not as simple. Even like the thank God for those community help us. And so we work together, but it doesn't mean we don't pay attention to container community. We do, and all those kind of those things we have to pay extra attention. So it's not mean like the so we still need to take care of the user, right? So like the circuit say GKE actually moved to the SIG V2, and then we also GKE don't have the complicated problem. Manu just mentioned that SIG V1 dependency, but it doesn't mean we just don't care because there are many other people using on Kubernetes. So yeah, that's the part. We should set a timeline and announce as early as possible, I guess. Maybe
I think a timeline is necessary. Also, it's going to come with some kernel requirements, and we might have to, Dawn, extend the service timeline when we make this happen, right? So that people who stay on older kernels, older versions of SIG, right, will still at least have some limited support for a little bit more time than would normally be, expected, the three quarters thing.
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing. Like, I think the big thing that I'm looking at is systemd is dropped or officially said that they will deprecate SIG V1 at the end of 2023. So like if we look at that timeline, I assume once the new distros upgrade to that version of systemd, like you won't be able to fall back, right, to SIG V1.
And that's what I'm saying. At that point, we'll be splitting anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
We need a plan for how do we support both for a while.
But in the past, actually long time back, systemd decided to drop, and we actually pulled them back to continue support. Okay, so I just want, maybe we should come up maybe since you have the more context here, to see what is missing, and then we could decide it. So if we really need the systemd, can we possible, like last time, we asked them to continue carrying on to support for some times, right? So that's kind of good things.
I think I can work from the Red Hat side to get a list of the kernel things we are tracking. And I think some of the things actually make sense for us to upstream. Like we have it in Cryo, but it definitely makes sense to do it in Kubernetes. So that way, we can share, okay, this is what we are doing and this is the gap. And this is the kernel work that is happening and when it's expected to land.
Alexander just mentioned it, but a lot of customers run like LTS versions of distros, and they'll run newer Kubernetes on an older distro. So just because systemd drops it, like customers will be running, or will be running old versions of systemd for a long time.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Actually, systemd. Actually, if correct me, Manu, I remember like the 3 years, the 4 years, and the almost want to announce drop the SIG v1. And actually, in the community, we stopped them in a signal, and we said, oh, we are not ready for that. So if I remember correctly, yeah.
Yes, I think, but even after that, right? We see some patches in systemd that are like, oh, okay, this is V1, we won't deal with it. Like for example, on a shutdown, it's not doing graceful wait for units anymore. We are okay because we have the node graceful shutdown feature in Kubernetes. But if
Yeah.
we didn't have that, then suddenly like our daemon sets and static pods will start getting killed without getting a SIG term. So patches of that nature have started landing in systemd with nodes saying, okay, this is legacy controller, we don't care.
Totally. Yeah.
The one thing we can do for end users is to deprecate to nowhere. Like if we deprecate and with no alternative and like missing features, it's a very bad experience. Okay. So action items, Murnal, you bring some kernel patches
Right.
that kernel issues you're tracking, and we can try to gather some numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and with that, we at the end of our agenda. If there are anything else, please speak up. Otherwise, let's get half an hour back. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Manu, talk about the SIG v1 deprecation. Cool. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.